we're going to talk about Job, because we're on the book of Job, chapter 3. Yay! Okay. Enthusiasm. Who would like to read Job chapter 3 for us?
After this, Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. Job answered, "Let the day perish in which I was born, the night which said, 'There is a man-child conceived.' Let that day be darkness. Don't let Elohim from above seek for it, neither let the light shine on it. Let darkness and the shadow of death claim it for their own. Let a cloud dwell on it. Let all that makes black the day terrify it. As for that night, let thick darkness seize on it. Let it not rejoice among the days of the year. Let it not come into the number of the months. Behold, let that night be barren. Let no joyful voice come therein. Let them curse it who curses the day, who are ready to rouse up Leviathan. Let the stars of the twilight of it be dark. Let it look for light but have none. Neither let it see the eyelids of the morning, because it didn't shut up the doors of my mother's womb, nor did it hide trouble from my eyes. Why didn't I die from the womb? Why didn't I give up the spirit when my mother bore me? Why did the knees receive me, or why the breast that I should suck? For now should I have lain down and been quiet. I should have slept, then I would have been at rest. With kings and counselors of the earth, who built up waste places for themselves, or with princes who had gold, who filled their houses with silver, or as a hidden, untimely birth I had not been, as infants who never saw light. There the wicked cease from troubling, there the weary are at rest. There the prisoners are at ease together. They don't hear the voice of the taskmaster. The small and the great are there. The servant is free from his master. Why is light given to him who is in misery, life to the bitter in soul, who long for death but it doesn't come, dig for it more than for hidden treasures, who rejoice exceedingly, are glad when they can find the grave? Why is light given to a man whose way is hid, whom Elohim has hedged in? For my sighing comes before I eat. My groanings are poured out like water. For the thing which I fear comes on me. That which I am afraid of comes to me. I am not at ease, neither am I quiet, neither have I rest, but trouble comes."
Amen. Wow. He's a happy fella, isn't he?
Considering what he was going through.
Considering what he was going through. And
Understandable.
this is the thing about us humans. When we go through trials like this, does God expect us to be cheerful? Right? Are we supposed to be always happy?
Well, he gave us feelings.
He gave us his emotions.
Emotions.
Yeah, he gave us emotions. What about that verse that says, "Count it all joy when you go through tribulations"? Is that the expectancy that God has, that we should be joyful when we go through trials?
DNA.
Yeshua himself is the model, right?
Yeah.
The model of righteousness. What is to be a righteous man? That's our Lord Yeshua. So he showed us how to go through tribulation, right? In the Garden of Gethsemane, he prays, "Yeah, let this cup pass from me." Right? But let not my will be done, but your will be done, right? So in the midst of his tribulation, and he says that he was sweating like blood, right? So the intense emotions he was feeling are normal for human beings to go through. The emotions are there. Job here is feeling, terrible pain and suffering of all the things that he lost, and he's got some emotions, right? And God is not against emotion. And when He says count it all joy when you go through tribulations, it's not asking you to be, with a fake face, happy and jumping for joy at the prospect of you're going through pain or whatever it is that you're going through, what it is asking us to do is that we count it. We count what's happening, and we understand that God is in control. Therefore, we have a joy internally that shows, right? In the sense that we are unmovable. We're not moved by the circumstances. We continue on our path, plugging along, joyful in the sense that we have a vision that is beyond the current pain that we're going through. Right? Our vision takes us beyond that. Is no, I am attaining an eternal price, and therefore, whatever is happening now is a passing thing, and I'm gonna get to that other end, and I'm gonna see the light. So it's about knowing where we're going and knowing who He is, right? So it's an eternal thing. It's not a physical joy, but a spiritual joy, if you like. It's a joy that is felt inside because you are assured of who He is and who we are to Him. Yeah, and like Chav says, to those who love Him, all things work out for good. Yeah, who are called by His name. And so we have this hope and this understanding that even if we go through things that will bring death, even then, like Abraham with Isaac, even if Isaac would die, we still have a resurrection. If the worst case scenario, which is death, would happen, even then we haven't lost. We have a resurrection. And so the joy that we are asked to feel is not a fake, joyful attitude in the midst of a trial. No, that's not what God is asking us. In fact, He showed us how to be joyful in tribulation. Right? He was crying, He was praying, He was, all of those things. And so He's our best example of how to go through tribulations. And tribulations come for different reasons. One is self-inflicted, of course. And two is through testing of our faith. And testing of our faith does come. Not directly from God, as we spoke last time, but it comes because we are exposed to that faith through Satan. We have to test it out and prove our place in the body of Messiah. So after this, Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. First of all, what does Job mean? He goes deeper into the root word for enemy. So when God is confronting Satan, He's saying, have you seen my servant, your enemy? Your hated one? Right? So we see a parallel that God is confronting Satan with that which he hates. Satan hates Job, right? And it's a play on words as well in the text itself. Why is he cursing the day of his birth? I wish I wasn't born, right? Cursing the day I was born. But I think there's something more that is missed out when you take that approach, or when you take that understanding of interpretation. If Job was cursing the day he was born because he was wishfully thinking, I wish I wasn't born, I think you miss the fact that Job was a wise man who was acquainted with the ways of Jehovah. All right, let's not dismiss that part about Job. He walked close with God. That is true. God would not put him up to be exposed against Satan if he wasn't. He chose the right man, didn't he? God doesn't make mistakes. So Job is a wise man. He understands the ways of God, and he's now cursing his birthday. We're going to talk a little bit more later on, but let's go back to it. Verse 3. Let the day perish in which I was born. Can a day die? And the night which said, there is a man-child conceived, a man conceived. So now he's cursing 2 days, not just the day of his birth, but the day of his conception as well. He's calling for those 2 days to be wiped out. Let that day, the day of conception, be a day of darkness. What's the Hebrew word for darkness?
It says Hosek.
Choshech. Very good. All right, we're going to see that one in the passage regarding the Passover. Right, one of the plagues, great darkness, Choshech. Let the day be Choshech. Do not let God from above seek for it. What does that got to do with anything? Why would God not have to seek it? What would happen to darkness if God sought after it?
It will become light.
It will become light, right? There is no shadow of turning in God. God is light. The moment God walked into it, there will be light, right? Neither let the light shine on it. Of course, light is God. God is light. Let darkness, choshech, and there's a couple of other words in there, which I translated the shadow of death. Zal, mavet. Mavet is death, and zal is the shadow. The shadow of death. Right, we're talking about the psalm when David says about the shadow of death. Do I walk through the valley of the shadow of death? I will fear no evil. The same concept is here when Iyob is cursing the day of his conception. He says that let darkness and the shadow of death claim it for their own. Remember when the Egyptians were in darkness, there was a thing in that text that it said the darkness that can be felt, right? As if darkness itself had a personality to it. It wasn't just darkness. There was an entity sort of understanding behind it. The darkness was an entity in itself. Here, Job is calling for that darkness and for the shadow of death to claim it as entities claiming something in the courts of Jehovah, right? These are mine. So Job is calling for these things to be taken away from him or taken away from the history of mankind. Right? In Job's understanding, God is eternal. We are not. And I am reminded of that verse that says, I am Jehovah of all flesh. Is there anything too hard for me? It's a question that God puts up. Is there anything too hard for Jehovah?
Not at all.
When Joshua was fighting the 5 armies in the fields, and because Jehovah had told him that he would wipe them all out, and he was battling, and the day was finishing, and he thought that he was not going to have enough time to finish them off. And he prayed and commanded the sun to stay still, and the sun did not set. Remember that?
Yep.
And you think one man prayed and the sun stood still because God made it stand still. Could God then wipe out the day of one of our conceptions? God can do it, right? If he wanted to, he could wipe out all our existence and we wouldn't even know it. In fact, he says, fear God who can kill not just the body but the soul in Gehinnom, which is our understanding of what happens at the end of the millennium, where mankind, whoever was evil and did not do what was right, will be annihilated. In other words, their memory is wiped out from existence. Everything that they are will be taken away, destroyed. Not just their bodies, but their soul as well. Yeah? And so when we think of God, we sometimes think of God in our human terms and we bring him down to our timeline. But Iyob was a wise man. He was praying that God will wipe out the day of his conception so that he would no longer exist. He was a man who could see beyond the physical realm, right? Iyob was a wise man. And I think if we just take the text at face value, we miss that. We miss that completely. So God can do anything he wants, even wipe the day of our conception, and wipes us off from the face of the earth, from existence itself, even from people's memories, if you wanted to. Did God do it here? No, he didn't. Let that day be darkness. Why is Job calling for darkness
So he can go to sleep.
on that day? He can go to sleep.
So he could, no, it would be, so the joy will
Someone's
come in the
tired.
morning.
Someone's tired. The joy will come in the morning. Whatever is in darkness is usually acquainted with things that are hidden, with things that are not right. Yeah? Whatever goes into darkness is lost. God is light, and in him there is no shadow of turning. There's no shadow in him. So whatever is in darkness usually is acquainted with things that are bad. As for that night, the night his parents conceived him, poor parents, let thick darkness cease on it. Let it not rejoice among the days of the year. So he's talking about each day as an entity as well here, right? The days rejoice. A lot of things that we understand about God's creation and the things that we miss about God's creation, sometimes in my mind put a question mark, in the sense that, we see the heavens and the earth becoming witnesses. I call heaven and earth to be witnesses against you. So Moses in this case is presenting heaven and earth as entities before God, right? And when we talk about the whole act of creation, in the Jewish understanding as well, there's all these entities that present themselves before Yehovah as part of creation. Even the alphabet itself, even the language itself presents itself before Yehovah as his living word. Let it not rejoice among the days of the year. Let it not come into the number of the months. In other words, that God would erase it from history. Let that night be barren, and let not joyful voice come therein. When I read about the joyful voice, it reminds me of that scripture in Isaiah that talks about, that it shall be heard again in the streets of Judah, in the cities of Judah, and in the streets of Jerusalem. Right? A voice of singing, the voice of rejoicing, the bridegroom and the bride. Right? Because when God is not involved in something, when God is away from his people, there is darkness and there is no voice to be heard. There is sadness instead, barrenness. But where God is, there is always fruitfulness and light, in contrast. Let them curse it who curse the day, who are ready to rouse up Leviathan. That's a weird one. Let them curse it. Who's them? The darkness, the shadow of death. Let them curse it who curse the day. It would be fitting for those entities to curse the day, right? Because they're contrary. Could also be people that are going through things and want to curse that specific day, because I'm sure Job was not the only one conceived or born on that day, and other people might be doing what he's doing. And it says here, who are ready to rouse up Leviathan. What's that about? What do you get with that? Who's Leviathan? The Tanin, the dragons. Who made Leviathan? Yehovah. And we're going to read all about it when we get to the 40th chapters. But for now, it just mentions him, who are ready to rouse up Leviathan. Leviathan is also acquainted with the twisted serpent, which is Hasatan. What would he say? Who are ready to rise up Leviathan? Why would someone rise Leviathan? Can anyone destroy Leviathan except God? Possibly not. It's an idiom, I would say. It's a Hebraism, and it has to do with having a death wish. Right? That those who curse the day, those who have a death wish, who are ready to rise up Leviathan. Let the stars of the twilight of it be dark, not give their light. Let it look for light, but have none. Neither let it see the eyelids of the morning. I didn't know the morning had eyelids. Again, I think it's a idiom of when you start to barely open your eyes and you barely allow the light in, and then you open your eyelids and all the light comes in, right? It's about the rising of the day, the dawning of the day. Because it did not shut up the doors of my mother's womb. Poor mom. Can you imagine? Continue to grow inside. Anyway. Nor did it hide trouble from my eyes. Why didn't I die from the womb? See, when we are in pain, these are the kind of questions that come into our hearts. Is God okay with that? So that's the point. You can have the questions without charging God for it. You can have a genuine question. Why didn't I die at birth? I've asked questions like that sometimes. Why did God spare my life? I don't know. Questions like that, they're okay to be asked. God understands our pain and our suffering. He understands that we are limited in time and space. that we are moving through time, but we have no control over it. We don't see the future, and we only know the past. And tomorrow we don't have it. And so in doing all that, I think it's okay to be asking questions, not being ungrateful, because that's a totally different offering. Not saying, like with an attitude, oh God, why did you, what were you thinking? Well, arrogant kind of attitude. Not that, but in a humble attitude to say, why didn't I die? Why was I made for so much suffering? Some people do go through a lot of suffering, right? And those questions are valid. They're part of who they are. They're valid questions, but as long as we don't charge God, and as long as we're not ungrateful or arrogant in the way that we're asking, that's okay. Why didn't I die? 11. Why didn't I give up the spirit when my mother bore me? It would have been better for me to give up my spirit at that point. Then I wouldn't have had to suffer all this. Why did the knees receive me? Or the breasts that I should suck, joined to life, given life. For now I would have lying down and been quiet. I would have slept. Then I would have been at rest. So this is a misconception that all who go to Sheol end up in a bad place, or that all to go down into the depth of the earth, as some places in the Bible call it, that they end up in hell. But the Bible does not talk about hell. It talks about a couple of different places, Sheol being one of them, which is where the abode of the dead. And Sheol has different chambers according to the book of Enoch. And yes, there are the chambers of torture, there are the chambers of flame, where people who are really, really bad in life end up there. And then there's a place of waiting, which is a place of unnerving waiting for judgment, which the Bible also talks about it. And then there's the place of rest. What do we call the place of rest? Abraham's bosom, when people are received so they can rest and await their resurrection. So there is a place of rest there, which is the place that babies go to when they are born, stillborn. Yehovah takes them to a place of rest to wait for the resurrection. It doesn't mean that they are sleeping, by the way, because they're fully conscious. Lazarus and the parable of Lazarus and the rich man should point that out. He would be at rest with kings and counselors of the earth who build up waste places for themselves. The princesses who had gold, who filled their houses with silver. Talking about Sheol itself, that it's full of all these people, wonderful people. Some good, some bad, right? Or as a hidden, untimely birth, as infants who never saw light. And the reason why he says that is because in Sheol there's only one light. We know about that. We studied this before. The fountain of light in Sheol, as described in the book of Enoch and other places. There the wicked cease from troubling. And they do trouble, don't they? There the weary are at rest. There the prisoners are at ease. together. They do not hear the voice of their taskmasters. No one's a taskmaster in Sheol. No human is a taskmaster in Sheol, anyway. The small and the great are there. The servant is free from his master. It gives you sort of a picture of what happens in Sheol, doesn't it? And this is something that you can incorporate into your theology of what happens in Sheol, the afterlife. Right? It's giving us a glimpse into the afterlife. Why is light given to him who is in misery? Life to the bitter in soul. These are a wise man's questions. There's nothing wrong with asking the hard questions without adding the attitude. Yeah? Asking the hard questions is okay. God can handle that. He may even answer you. Who long for death, but it doesn't come. Dig for it more than for hidden treasures. Who rejoice exceedingly are glad when they can find the grave. People who are so tired of living that they just want to have rest. They just want to go to be with the Father. Why is light given to a man whose way is hid? Sort of correlates back to Solomon's Book of Lamentations when he's talking about the different things there, and also Ecclesiastes. God lets the sun shine on the good and the bad, whom God has hedged in. For my sight comes before I eat, for my sighing comes before I eat. My groanings are poured out like water. For the thing which I fear has come to me. We've talked about these verses before. That which I was afraid, I am afraid, comes to me. The things that we fear, the things that we are afraid of, are usually the things that are going to come in our testing. I am not at ease, neither I am quiet, neither have I rest, but trouble comes. So, the whole point of this chapter is where Iyob is having a conversation with God and putting out his pain and his suffering, asking God to wipe him from existence, and then not understanding why God allows him to go through this trouble. Because did Job have any idea of what God was doing? No. So from his perspective, he doesn't know what he's done wrong, if he's done anything wrong. All he knows is that God has brought all this evil upon him, or has allowed this evil to come upon him, and he has no answers. So he's searching for answers. And at the same time, he's saying, forget about the answer. Why don't you just wipe me off so that I don't have to endure all this? So I think the pain that people suffer sometimes, it is a valid thing to be able to ask God certain questions. And I think Job is the one that shows us how to do it without having the attitude of ungratefulness, without having the attitude of arrogance or blaming. Because that's the other thing we do as humans, we turn straight away, right? Which is like normal thing that we normally do. We turn on others. It can't be my fault. It has to be someone else's fault. Who do we find to blame? It can never be our fault. It has to be someone else's fault. We can never bring things upon ourselves. It has to be someone else's fault that, they cursed me or something, No. We curse ourselves. How do we curse ourselves? not following what Yehovah says, blessing ourselves, taking what belongs to Him, right? We curse ourselves the moment we break the Torah. The blessings and the curses are attached to the Torah, right? Deuteronomy 28, that's right. And so if we understand what's a curse and what's a blessing, then we understand how we get cursed. It's no one else's fault that you are cursed. It's your own fault. You brought it upon yourself. Yeah. And so I think this passage not only gives us a glimpse into Sheol, it gives us a glimpse into human suffering, it gives us a glimpse into a wise man understanding of God, right? And of how capable God is of doing things. And sometimes we limit God, right? With our own short views of what He can and can't do. Because if we can imagine it, then God can do it. But if we can't imagine it, then God can't do it. And that's not true. Things that have not come up to the heart of man, not have gone up to our imagination, are the things that God has for those who love Him. Right? It has not come up to our imagination. Imagine how powerful, how able God is to do beyond even what we think and ask of Him. So we'll leave it at that. Praise Abba. Are you enjoying this going through the chapters?
Yes.
Are you getting a lot out of it? I know I am. I hope you are too. All right. Praise Abba. Bless you all. Shalom. And Hag Sameach Bikurim. Hag Bikurim Sameach.